God does not always speak in thunder or fire. Sometimes his voice is the quiet pause between your thoughts. When we think of divinity, we often imagine it in grand gestures, mountaintops trembling under the force of revelation, burning bushes that command attention, clouds splitting with the sound of heavenly decrees. We expect the divine to echo like a storm, to arrive as a blaze of light that casts out the shadows of doubt instantly. But if you look closely, if you become very still, you will begin to understand. That which is most sacred often moves like the wind through the leaves. Present yet unseen, powerful yet gentle, subtle yet undeniable. This message, to be heard before a certain moment, is not about panic or fear. It is about alignment. Like a wave that forms far out in the ocean before it breaks on the shore. Some truths begin forming in us long before we become aware of them. They are planted like seeds in the silence, watered by the quiet recognition of something greater moving within. But to catch them before they pass, before they bloom or fall back into the sea of missed possibilities, we must become still enough to feel the subtle rhythm of their emergence. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of something deeper than noise. Most people run from it. They fill their days with conversations that circle around nothing, distractions that never quite satisfy, and a constant hum of motion that shields them from the great stillness that waits beneath it all. But if you can resist the pull of all that clamor, even for a moment, you may come to discover that silence is not empty. It is full of answers. It is full of truth. There is a space between your thoughts, a space so small it goes unnoticed by most. It is like the space between the breath, inhalation and exhalation, creation and release. It is within that space that the sacred speaks. It is not a voice you will hear with your ears, but one you will feel in your bones. It is a knowing, a vibration, a clarity that does not rely on reason, but awakens something ancient and true within you. But to access that space, to be present for it, you must learn to listen in a new way. This kind of listening is not passive. It is not waiting for the next word to drop into your ears. It is a deep internal posture, a way of holding yourself, a readiness, a surrender. You must become empty to be filled. You must let go of your assumptions, your noise, your urgency, your agenda. Only then can you hear what has always been trying to speak. There is a reason this message has a time, not because the divine exists within time, but because you do. Human life is a series of seasons, and certain truths are meant for certain moments. Like fruit that must be harvested at the right time. If left too long, it withers. There is a moment of ripeness, and if you miss it, the insight may pass you by, not because it was not offered, but because you were not prepared to receive it. You have felt it, haven't you? That subtle tug in your chest, like a hand gently guiding you towards something you cannot quite name. It comes in the quiet moments, just before sleep, just after waking, when your mind is not racing and your body is not rushing. It comes when you look at the sky and suddenly remember how vast this life is, how small your worries seem against the canvas of the stars. It comes when you see a child laugh, or a leaf fall, or a stranger's eyes meet yours with recognition. It is the eternal hiding in the ordinary. And yet we turn away from it. We scroll, we swipe, we talk, we consume. The very moments that are most full of presence are the ones we often brush past, chasing a noise that never truly satisfies. But the voice of God does not compete with noise. It does not shout to be heard. It simply is. Quietly, steadily, waiting for you to be quiet enough to meet it. You may be waiting for a sign, a voice, a vision, a miracle. But signs do not always appear in the ways we expect. Sometimes the miracle is the fact that you woke up today, that you are still here, breathing, with another chance to align yourself with your truth. Sometimes the sign is the ache you feel, the restlessness that keeps you up at night. It is not always peace that signals you on the right path. Sometimes it is the discomfort that reminds you to turn inward. What would happen if you stopped asking for the voice to come in the form you desire and instead opened yourself to the form it already takes? Sit still, not just in body but in spirit. Find a moment today, before the moment passes, where you can place everything down. Your thoughts, your plans, your fears, your judgments. Imagine them like heavy stones you've been carrying. Let them fall beside you. Feel the weightlessness of what remains. That silence, that's where the divine speaks. That's where you begin to truly listen. And when you do, don't expect words. Expect a shift, a settling, a remembering, a feeling that something ancient inside you has stirred, something long forgotten has returned. The voice you hear may not say, "Go this way," or "Do that." It may simply say, "I am here." And sometimes, that is all you need to hear. Sometimes, that is the entire message. The pause between your thoughts is not empty space. It is the space where the eternal lives, where inspiration is born, where healing begins. If you only fill it with your own noise, you will never hear the quiet knocking of something greater. There are moments, rare, precious moments, when you are offered a chance to step into deeper awareness, to wake up, not with your eyes, but with your soul. These moments are not announced with fanfare. They arise silently, often disguised as nothing, a feeling, a question, a choice. But if you are still enough, you will recognize them. This is one of those moments. Before the time passes, before the next season begins, make space, not outside of you, but within. Let the noise fade. Let the striving pause. Listen. Listen not to the world, but to the space beneath the world. The rhythm beneath the rhythm. The presence beneath the presence. God does not need to speak loudly because the truth is already inside you. The voice you're waiting for is not coming from above. It is arising from within. It is the same voice that speaks when you know something without knowing how you know it. The same voice that tells you when something isn't right, when it's time to go, when it's time to stay. That voice has always been with you. You just have to remember how to hear it. We live in a time where speed is celebrated, but speed often deafens us. The faster we move, the less we hear, the quieter the voice of truth becomes. To hear what matters most, you must slow down. You must become deliberate, gentle, patient. Listening is an act of love. Listening is an act of devotion. Some people spend their entire lives searching for a voice that has never stopped speaking. They read books, follow teachers, climb mountains, travel to sacred places. Yet all the while, the divine presence has been whispering in their own breath, waiting for a moment of stillness to be heard. Do not wait until the noise of life becomes so loud that it drowns out everything sacred. Do not wait until your body forces you to rest, or your spirit breaks from exhaustion. Choose the silence now, before the moment passes, before the season shifts, before you look back and realize the message had come and gone and you were too busy to notice. If you make space, truly make space, you will discover something you cannot find in books or lectures or philosophies. You will find what no one else can give you and no one else can take from you. 3. You will find that you are not separate from the divine. You are an expression of it. And when the voice speaks, not in words, but in presence, you will not be afraid. You will recognize it as your own. So listen, not just with your ears, but with your whole being. Listen with your breath. Listen with your stillness. Listen with your surrender. And when you hear it, when that silent voice rises within, the pause, honor it. Because God does not always speak in thunder or fire. Sometimes His voice is the quiet pause between your thoughts. And that, if you are ready, is enough. There comes a time in every life when the soul sends out a whisper, not a command, not a demand, just a quiet invitation. It doesn't push, it doesn't plead, it simply waits, gently calling you back to yourself. You may not notice it at first. It often arrives during the in-between moments, in the hush of early morning when the sun hasn't yet climbed the sky, or in the quiet ache just before you fall asleep. It arrives when the world around you finally slows, and for just a breath you hear something beneath the noise. A yearning, a pull, a voice that doesn't speak in words but in memory. The kind of memory that isn't held in the mind but in the heart. A sacred remembering of who you were before the world told you who to be. It is the invitation to return. To return is not about going backwards. It is not about erasing what has been lived or wishing for some lost time to come again. No, the invitation to return is something deeper. It is a turning inward, a walking home, not to a place, but to a state of being. To return is to remember the silence from which you came and the truth that lives beyond every identity, every name, every role you've carried like heavy garments. So many of us have forgotten. We got busy, we got distracted. We began to believe that our value came from what we could do, what we could achieve, how much we could carry. We dressed ourselves in accomplishments and titles, in expectations and obligations, until we could no longer recognize the person underneath. We learned how to survive, how to perform, how to keep going. But in all that forward motion, we lost the one thing that mattered most: present. And yet, the invitation never stopped arriving. In a moment of stillness, in the way light dances through a window, in the sudden laughter of a child, in the feeling of standing barefoot on the earth. These are not coincidences, they are reminders. Small openings in the veil of busyness where the sacred peeks through and says, "Do you remember?" This return has nothing to do with changing the world around you. It is not about fixing or solving or improving. The world may continue to spin in chaos and confusion, but you are being asked to come back into harmony, not with the world, but with the essence that lives beneath it, the stillness that does not waver, the breath that is not shaken by wind or flame. To return is to soften. You don't force your way home. You don't push open the doors of the soul with loud declarations or rigid discipline. You simply sit. You breathe. You notice. You let go of needing to understand everything, fix everything, become everything. You surrender the effort. You stop trying to become and instead allow yourself to be. And in that being, you begin to feel the warmth of something that never left you. A light that was simply waiting beneath the layers. A truth that did not disappear but was simply quiet while you were distracted. It has always been there, patient, loving, undisturbed. The journey back is not linear. It does not have steps or milestones. Sometimes you will feel close, other times far. That's okay. What matters is not where you are on the path, but that you are listening, that you are responding to the call with even the smallest movement. A deep breath, a moment of silence, a single choice to turn inward instead of outward. You do not need to do more, you need to remember more, not through thought, but through presence. Because the truth is not something you learn, it is something you return to, something you uncover, like a forgotten treasure buried beneath years of dust. The world may tell you that returning to yourself is selfish, that you must always be reaching outward, helping others, proving your worth through service and success. But how can you give anything real to others if you are disconnected from your own source? How can you love without condition if you have forgotten the unconditional love that lives within you? To return is the greatest gift you can offer, not just to yourself, but to everyone around you. Because when you are rooted in presence, your very being becomes a healing. Your presence becomes peace. Not through effort, but through alignment. There is a great difference between knowing about the truth and being the truth. You may have read the books, heard the teachings, spoken the words, but until you feel it in your bones, until you live it in the way you breathe, the way you walk, the way you listen, you have not yet returned. And when you do return, you will not feel like someone new. You will feel like someone real, not improved, but revealed. The masks will fall away, the striving will soften, the questions will no longer feel urgent, because the answer will not be something you find, it will be something you are. In the stillness of return, everything changes without anything needing to change. You may still go to work, you may still speak with others, fulfill your roles, meet the world where it is. But inside, there is a spaciousness, a softness, a lightness that was not there before. You are no longer lost in the performance. You are no longer chasing shadows. You are rooted, grounded, alive in a new way. This is not a retreat from life. It is a re-entry, but from the center, not the edges. From presence, not panic. From awareness, not attachment. And in this return, you begin to see others differently too. You see their masks, but also the light behind them. You hear their words, but feel their pain beneath the noise. You no longer react from your wounds, but respond from your depth. You listen more. You judge less. The return teaches you that nothing is truly separate, that the divine you sought in temples and texts has been whispering in your own breath all along, that the sacred is not something you visit, but something you carry, that the home you longed for is not a destination, it is a way of being. And yet, returning does not mean you will never forget again. You will. That is part of the rhythm, like the tide moving in and out. You will get caught in the noise again. The world will pull at you, distract you, try to convince you that the answers are out there. That is okay. What matters is that now you know how to return, that you have felt the stillness, that you have tasted the truth, and once you have, you can never fully lose it again. Even in forgetting, the memory remains. So when the world feels heavy again, when the noise becomes too loud, when the path seems unclear, remember, you don't need to fix it all. You just need to return, not to a place, but to presence, not to an identity, but to essence, not to doing, but to being. Sometimes the most powerful act is to stop running, to sit down, close your eyes and whisper to yourself, I'm here. And in that moment, something sacred awakens. Not because you called it from afar, but because you remembered. It was always within you. There is no deadline for return. There is no punishment for delay. There is only invitation. And the invitation is always open, always waiting, always whispering, come home. So listen, not with your ears, but with your heart. Feel the pull, feel the softness, feel the remembering, and take one step inward. That is enough. That is everything. There is a sound that is not heard with the ears. It lives beneath the voices, beneath the traffic, beneath the constant stream of thoughts that seem to move faster than breath. It waits, not with urgency, not with pressure, but with the quiet dignity of something eternal. You cannot find it by adding more. You can only discover it by removing what is not needed, by peeling back the layers of noise that you have mistaken for life. This silence is not the absence of sound. It is not what happens when the world finally hushes. It is what has always been there, underneath the hum of existence, untouched and unmoved. You do not need to create it. You only need to become still enough to notice it. But in the modern world, noise has become the default. A constant hum of distraction. Music in every room, screens in every hand, voices filling every space. Even in solitude, the mind plays its own relentless music, rehearsing old arguments, projecting future fears, narrating every moment as if afraid to let a single second go by without commentary. We have become addicted to the noise, not because it nourishes us, but because it distracts us from the ache of absence, from the hollow spaces inside where we once met truth, but now meet only restlessness. Noise gives us the illusion of connection, the illusion of progress, but it leaves us tired, not fulfilled, full but not fed. And yet, beneath all of it, the silence waits. It is not demanding. It will not compete for your attention. It has no advertisement, no flashing light, no seductive voice to call you in. It is the friend who never left, though you ignored them. It is the home that never locked its door, though you walked past it again and again. To return to this silence is to return to the essence of being. You do not return with effort, but with surrender. You sit and you let go of needing to understand, of needing to achieve, of needing to become. You breathe and you soften, and as you do, the noise begins to lose its grip. Slowly, gently, like mist dissolving in morning light. At first it may be uncomfortable. Silence can feel unfamiliar, even threatening to a mind conditioned to distraction. You may find restlessness rising, thoughts becoming louder, not quieter. This is not a mistake. This is the detox. The mind, used to being the center, panics at the idea of being put down, even for a moment. It screams louder, not because the silence is dangerous, but because the silence threatens the illusion of control. But if you stay, if you remain just one breath longer, you will begin to feel it. Not as something outside of you, but as something rising from within, a deep, wordless peace, a spaciousness that doesn't need anything to complete it, a presence that is already whole. And in that presence, something softens. The body begins to unclench. The thoughts slow down, not because you forced them to, but because they realize there is nothing left to resist. The silence welcomes them too, not with judgment, but with openness. Even the thoughts are allowed to come and go, but now you are no longer tangled in them. You watch them, like leaves floating down a stream. You notice the stories, the fears, the worries, but they are no longer your identity. They are just movements. The silence remains, steady beneath it all. This is the difference between surface and depth. The surface of life is always changing. Winds rise, waves crash, thoughts race, emotions surge, but beneath the surface, there is the still ocean, deep, vast, unmoving. The more you connect with that depth, the less you are thrown by the surface, the less you fear the storm, because you know it is not the whole truth. To live from silence is not to escape the world. It is not to reject life. It is to meet life from a place of rootedness. You still speak, but your words come from a deeper place. You still act, but your actions are not reactions. They are expressions of clarity. Silence gives you vision. Not the kind of vision that looks outward for answers, but the kind that sees clearly from within. It is not bound by noise. It is not clouded by hurry. It sees not just what is, but what is real, what is needed, what is kind, what is true. And this clarity becomes your compass. So much suffering comes from confusion, from chasing what is not real, from attaching to what is temporary. But in silence, you begin to discern. You see the difference between desire and longing, between impulse and intuition, between fear and wisdom. The noise may say, run faster. The silence says, be still. The noise may say, you're not enough. The silence says, you already are. The noise says, prove yourself. The silence says, come home. And slowly, the silence begins to reshape you. Not by adding more, but by removing what was never yours. The false ideas, the heavy expectations, the old identities. You begin to feel lighter, not because life became easier, but because you are no longer carrying what you don't need. This is not about escaping responsibilities. You still live, you still love, you still move through the world, but now you do so with presence, with peace, with power that is not loud but unshakable. And when you forget, because you will, the silence does not punish you, it does not shame you, it simply waits, patient, loving, unmoved, because it knows that all things return in time. You are not separate from this silence. It is not somewhere you visit. It is who you are before the noise began. It is the space in which all experience arises, the awareness behind every moment, the gentle witness behind every emotion, the stillness in which your very breath unfolds. And so the practice is not to force silence, but to trust it, to make room for it, to honor it, to choose it moment by moment. Even in the midst of noise, you can touch silence. In the pause between two words, in the space between two breaths, in the glance that needs no explanation, in the presence that holds without fixing. Silence is not far. It is always one breath away. And the more you live in that silence, the more your life becomes prayer, not spoken, but lived, not asked, but known, not pleaded, but embodied. Because silence teaches you that what you were looking for was never separate. It was only hidden beneath the noise. In silence you find God, not as a voice in the sky, but as the quiet that never left, as the stillness that holds all things, as the breath that breathes you, the space that contains you, the light that is you. This is not philosophy, this is not belief, this is experience. And once tasted, it can never be forgotten. So, when the world grows loud again, and it will, remember the silence. Return to it, not just in stillness, but in every step. In the way you listen, the way you speak, the way you love. Let your life carry the fragrance of silence. Let it be your temple, your refuge, your truth. And in that silence, know this: you are not lost. You are not late. You are not broken. You are only being called. And the call is not to do more, but to hear more. Not to shout, but to listen. Not to arrive somewhere new, but to uncover what was always here. There is a silence beneath all noise. Let it hold you. Let it speak to you. Let it become you. There are messages that arrive quietly, without announcement, without thunder or fire. They come wrapped in the ordinary, hidden in moments so soft that the busy mind overlooks them. A wind touches your skin, a leaf falls with unusual grace. A stranger meets your gaze longer than necessary, and something stirs inside. You don't always know why, but a part of you listens. The voice doesn't always sound like a voice. It may not speak your language. It may not speak in words at all, but it knows how to reach you. Through symbols, through timing, through the silence between sounds. It speaks from the depth of the invisible. And more than that, it speaks directly to you. Not to your role, not to your mask, not to the version of yourself you try to uphold for the world, but to the essence, the you underneath it all. The one before the names, before the stories. The one watching quietly behind your eyes. For so long, you may have assumed the message was for someone else. The wise, the chosen, the saint on the mountaintop. You read the sacred text and they felt distant, like they were describing someone holier, someone stronger. You listened to the guidance of the universe and thought, surely that's meant for them, not me. But that was never true. It was you. You were the one being spoken to. Every gentle push you felt, every moment your heart stirred without explanation, every time you stood at the edge of something that made your soul whisper yes, even when your mind said no. That was the call. Not a command, but a reminder. A hand extended from the eternal, waiting patiently for you to take it. You see, the sacred doesn't always knock loudly. It doesn't force its way in. It waits for the moment you are soft enough to feel it. Life has always been whispering to you, not because you are broken or in need of fixing, but because you are part of it, not separate, not apart. You are always woven into the message. You are not just a receiver, you are the message and the messenger. But in a world of noise and rows and goals, it's easy to forget. You take on so many layers. You try to become something for someone. You gather praise like armor. You chase titles like they can give you a name. But deep down, none of it lands. It touches the surface, but not the soul. Because what your soul longs for is not recognition, but remembrance. To remember that you matter, not because of your accomplishments, but because of your essence. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are. Not the name you were given, but the being that lives underneath that name. The quiet awareness, the unshakable light. And the message keeps coming. It comes when you're tired. It comes when you're joyful. It comes when you're sitting in a crowd feeling invisible, and when you're alone feeling seen. It doesn't need perfect conditions. It only needs your presence. Sometimes it arrives as pain, not as punishment, but as an invitation. Pain sharpens attention. It pierces through numbness. It removes the unnecessary and leaves only what's real. When the heart breaks, it opens. And in that open space, the message finds room to speak. And other times the message arrives as beauty, as awe, as the kind of silence that takes your breath away and then fills it with something divine, a sunset that feels too perfect to explain, a moment of laughter that feels like eternity, the eyes of a child that make you forget time. These moments are not accidental. They are reminders. They are love notes from the source, telling you again and again, you are not alone, you are not forgotten, you are not random, you are seen, heard, held. You belong here. You always have. But because we doubt, we seek confirmation outside. We ask others to tell us who we are. We ask the world to reflect back our worth. But the truth is, you already know. You've always known. It's just that knowing was buried under years of conditioning, comparison, and fear. Yet, even so, the knowing has never left you. Like a candle burning in a locked room, the room may be dark, but the flame is alive. It waits for you to open the door. And when you do, when you pause long enough, breathe deeply enough, become still enough, the message becomes clear. Not in the way the mind expects, with logic and precision, but in the way the heart understands. A felt sense, a quiet certainty. You may not be able to explain it, but you will not be able to deny it. It is the sense that life is not happening to you, but for you. That the path you are walking, even with its sharp stones and winding turns, is not a mistake. That the very longing you feel is sacred. It is not a flaw. It is your compass. That restlessness you've tried to silence, it's pointing you somewhere. That ache you've carried without words, it's a doorway. That deep feeling that there's more to this life than what you've been taught, that is the message in its purest form. It is the reminder that your life is not random. It is a thread in the great tapestry. Without your thread, the whole pattern changes. You are not an afterthought. You are an intention. Even when you feel small, even when you feel forgotten, even when your hands are trembling and your heart is tired, especially then, because the divine doesn't speak only when you are strong. It speaks into your weakness. It leans close when you are on the floor. It whispers in the dust, I am still here, and so are you. Every moment you thought you were alone, you weren't. Every night you cried into a pillow, thinking no one could hear. Something hurt, not to rescue you, but to witness you, to walk with you, to keep whispering until you could hear again. And now you are beginning to hear, not through your ears, but through your being, through the part of you that doesn't need proof to believe, the part that knows truth by how it feels. You are starting to realize the message was never outside you. It has always been within. That pull toward growth, that hunger for meaning, that quiet urge to sit in silence even when the world demands your attention. These are not random. They are seeds. And each one carries within it the message. You are not just here to survive. You are here to remember. You are here to embody. You are here to become what you already are. Not in the eyes of the world, but in the eyes of truth. You are already enough, already loved, already worthy. The message keeps saying it over and over, not because it changes, but because we forget. And when you forget again, it will still be here. In the breath, in the sky, in the quiet look of someone who truly sees you. In the moment you stop, close your eyes and say, I'm listening. The voice that answers will not be foreign. It will sound like the deepest part of yourself. Because it is. This is the great paradox. You were waiting for a sign, for a message, for a calling. But the entire time, the voice you were waiting for was your own. Not the voice of ego, but the voice of essence. The voice that does not shout. The voice that does not need to convince. And now you hear it. Not once, but continuously. In every leaf that falls. In every heartbeat that echoes the pulse of the divine. In the space between your thoughts. In the stillness you once feared, but now welcome. Because now you know you are the one being spoken to. Voice have been, always will be.